What was the nicest thing someone has done for you? When my parents were awful and my sister was passing away, my friend's parents took me in for a while, but they did it in a way that seemed like a sleepover for a few months. I didn't realize until I was an adult how much they stepped up for me. Sounds a bit like what my dad used to do for me. My mother would go into terrible rages, start throwing and breaking stuff. I was preschool age. When it was obvious she was getting started, my dad would just take me for a walk before I realized what was going on. We used to walk around for hours, me just asking him stuff constantly like a toddler does. One of my high school bullies invited me to his house to hang out for a day. I was really nervous it might just be to screw with me, but I was desperate for some sort of friendship, so I went over. We are now best friends and he and his family feels like family to me, and I have no idea how we ever disliked each other. One of my best friends from high school was a big jerk to me, and I was back to him. This lasted almost all of freshman year. This stupid kid was the first person I ever didn't get along with. Not sure what happened, but we became best friends for the rest of our time in high school. He lives out of state now, and I miss him from time to time. I went to a local breakfast spot after a rough night. Totally forgot my wallet, so I left my phone as collateral and went to my house. Came back and some guy had already paid for me. I know it doesn't seem that big of a deal, but it was a pretty bleak week for me, so it meant a lot. Kinda similar story, where I left my wallet in my friend's car before I switched back to my car and only found out after I filled up at the gas station. Guy servicing the pump knew me as a regular and said it's all good and put his own money at the register. Paid him back the next day plus extra, and now just passing by the gas station gets my mood up. When I was about 13, the pastor of our family church heard me practicing chopping on the piano. Knowing my parents couldn't afford it, he offered to pay for my music studies, organ, piano, music theory and ear training, so that I'd be prepared to enter music conservatory after high school. All he asked for in return was that I'd help out with the church's music program when needed, which, in itself, proved to be a wonderful learning experience. This kind, generous man spent thousands of his own money to help me along the way to a rewarding career in music. I've posted this before. This is the nicest thing someone has done for me. This was in Seattle. It was late at night and I decided to surprise a girl I was talking to by heading to her apartment, my now ex-girlfriend. It was around 10:30, and unbeknownst to me, the subway stopped running at 11 o'clock. Unfortunately, I was halfway there, and I decided to message her, and she told me to take a specific bus to get to her city. I get on the bus, and I don't have the slightest idea on what stop I should be getting off on. Well, about 10 minutes later, a load of people get off on this one stop. An older Korean businessman sees me and motions to me that there's an available seat next to him. He starts talking to me in English, and he says that the stop where I'm getting off is one stop before he gets off, and that he'll let me know when. We start conversation about where he works, how he learned English, what I'm doing in Korea. By the time we knew it, his stop came up. He profusely apologized to me and said that it was the stop before. I said, "It's okay, I'll just walk the opposite direction." As we get off the bus, we are both walking in the same direction. As we come up to an intersection, he flags down a taxi, tells him the subway station to drop me off on, and he paid the fare. All this while still apologizing to me. My mother died, and I was so stressed trying to find a way to give her the funeral she deserved. My boyfriend went down to the funeral home, made the arrangements, and paid the balance. By far the kindest thing anyone has ever done for me. I had something similar happen to me, except it was an old friend who'd come into a lot of money that paid for the funeral. I was so profoundly touched by the gesture that I returned the favor and killed him so that I could pay for his funeral as well. A paramedic helping me after I was in a car crash took his time to come back to the car and bring me back my front tooth that was really tiny, and he offered to go and look for it in a wreck, and at the same time found and brought back my partner's phone. I don't know his name, I was in such a state of shock I can't even remember how he looked like. But he put my tooth in a special liquid and the hospital team managed to put it back, saving me a lot of money. There was also a policewoman who put a blanket on me and made sure I kept it. The hospital only managed to take it off me right before I left. It was a green standard first aid blanket. I don't know why I refused to let go of it. Again, shock. But it provided a lot of comfort. Thank you so much, guys. My ex-girlfriend turned me in for stealing opiates. Been clean a little over 2 years now. May have saved my life. So did she turn you in on malicious intent or to make you go clean? It was definitely malicious intent, but it had the unintended byproduct of forcing me to get my shit together. I had really shitty periods when I was a teenager. They still kind of suck a lot, but they were at their absolute worst when I was about 15 to 17. One day, I was at school and my period started a few days early. I knew I didn't have long before I was going to be in a world of pain. But I had one last class before the school day was over and I could go home. And I lived about half an hour away from my school, so I decided it was pointless to call home and have someone pick me up because I would have had to stick around for most of my class anyway. While I waited for my ride, my school had block scheduling, so it was still going to be a 90-minute class. But whatever. So I just put on a pad and hoped for the best. Not long after I went to my class, I could already feel the pain getting intense. I tried not to squirm or do anything else distracting while my teacher was giving her lecture. But eventually she noticed that I looked extremely distressed and asked what was wrong. Since I went to an all-girls school, I felt comfortable saying that my period had just started and so I wasn't feeling well. Suddenly, the whole room sprang into action. One girl asked if I needed a pad or tampon. Another girl got permission from the teacher to grab mid-all from her locker. At one point, I dashed out of the classroom to the nearest bathroom to puke, and a friend who was in my class followed me to the bathroom to hold my hair out of my face. After all of that, I went to the office and called home to have someone come and get me because I knew I really couldn't wait it out until the school day was over. The secretary let me stay in the lounge area outside the office, which was nice because the chairs were pretty comfy and I was already really sore at that point. One of the girls from my class asked if it would be okay for her to stay with me as I waited for my ride home because she knew I lived relatively far away, so I was going to be there a while. She and I weren't super close. I wouldn't have said we were friends because we didn't hang out in the same friend groups and we didn't have a lot of classes together the entire time we were in high school. But she was really sweet for wanting to stay with me. And so we spent the next 30 to 40 minutes just sitting and talking, which was easily the longest time I had ever talked with her. That day will always stick out to me. It was really touching how everyone in my class showed so much concern for me and wanted to help, even if they didn't really know me all that well. We all need to look out for one another, you know. Edit. Wow. I got an award. Thanks to whoever thought my story was worthy. My grandmother made a ton of birthday cards in advance. After she passed away, I still receive birthday cards from her for the next few years. It was a little weird, but it was definitely nice to hear words from her after she passed. My firstborn had a severe deformity and spent a week in hospital before we took him off life support. I was staying at the Ronald McDonald House, and even though one of the rules was that you are your own maid when you leave, complete with doing laundry and remaking the beds, I was a complete wreck. A kind stranger took care of my room for me, even though they were going through their own stuff. Another blessing from that dark time is that the funeral home took care of everything for me, including all bills associated with the service and cremation. I will never not donate to the Ronald McDonald House, and I know what funeral home I'll be using when I one day need one again. Edit. Thank you everyone for the well wishes and the love, and really thank you to people who have said they will be donating to this charity. Without them I wouldn't have been able to have even the little time with him that I did. It was a very long time ago and very dark sad time. It destroyed my family. A few years later I lost my husband to suicide stemming from the depression that happened from this. And while both deaths changed me, I'm very good now and no happiness. I want to say that I've thought about how very bad things can get in the world. But this stranger and people like you show me daily that the world is full of amazing loving people, and even when I do get feeling really down, thinking about good people helps. You've all got me crying in a really good way. When I was a freshman in high school I took an art class that was a mix of 9th 12th graders. I was so bad with people back then, so I spent most of class sitting on the floor between the trash can and the drying racks and never speaking to anyone. There was this one 11th grade guy who always would talk to me. He didn't know me or anything. He just happened to sit near me. But he'd always ask about my day or compliment my art or offer to help me with my math homework. At one point he even managed to get me to sit at the desk with the rest of the students. It's just one of those things I think about from time to time, because he really had every right to ignore me like everyone else did. But he didn't. He really made art class into a second home for me. I miss that guy. Growing up I was severely neglected and abused, and had no friends due to my lack of hygiene and social skills. One of my teacher aides brought me to her house to play with her daughter, brought me on family trips with them, gave me clean clothes, and just showed me an insane amount of kindness I'll never be able to repay. I have an online friend in another country, and one time she made a cake for my birthday with my name on it because she knew no one else would do anything. I've never been able to celebrate my birthday between my shitty mom and awful relationships. It's just become a tradition to lay in bed and cry every year. Well, this year, my best friend and BF put their heads together and threw me a surprise party, decorated our apartment, baked me a cake, and decorated it to the best of their abilities, and got me some small, well thought out presents. 24 years old and finally had my first good birthday. I cried like a ducking baby. Someone ran out of their home and gave me water to drink after I fell from the bike. It's not really that bad other than a few scratches to the side, but it's nice to see people helping out. Sorry for shifting the frame of the question to nicest thing someone I know has done for someone else. My brother took a fellow band nerd on a high school graduation road trip for several weeks. Thing is, the friend was dying of leukemia and they both knew that this was going to be his first and last road trip. No timetable. Just one day at a time across the breadth of the US. In August of my freshman year of high school, a guy said nice shirt to me. I've been hanging on to that for like 4 years lmayo. Hey, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.